Let me ask you something honestly. Have you ever felt like you're doing everything right, but women still don't chase you? You reply fast. You try to be kind. You give attention. You try to be interesting. Yet somehow, the guy who barely tries seems to get all the attention. And that leaves you thinking, what am I doing wrong? Am I not attractive enough? Why do women lose interest so quickly? Now imagine we're just sitting next to each other right now, having a real conversation. No filters, no fake motivational talk. Because the truth I'm about to tell you might challenge everything you've been taught about attraction. Most men believe women chase good looks, money, or status. But psychology tells a slightly different story. Yes, those things can help, but they are not the core reason someone becomes deeply attracted to another person. In fact, many studies in social psychology suggest that human attraction is strongly influenced by perceived value, emotional stimulation, and uncertainty. When someone feels like they are constantly discovering something new about you, their curiosity grows, and curiosity is powerful. Think about it this way. Why do people binge watch a TV series? Because they don't know what happens next. Mystery keeps attention alive. Now apply that to relationships. If someone can fully predict you, if they know exactly what you'll say, if they know you'll always be available, something interesting happens. The excitement fades. But because predictability reduces, not because you're a bad person, as emotional tension. And emotional tension is what often fuels attraction. This is where many men unknowingly make a mistake. They think attraction is built by giving more texting, more compliments, more reassurance, more availability. But sometimes the more you try to prove your worth, the more you accidentally remove the very thing that makes people curious about you. And here's the controversial part. Women are not usually chasing the man who is trying the hardest to impress them. They are often drawn toward the man who seems comfortable with himself, focused on his life, and not desperate for validation. That doesn't mean being rude. That doesn't mean ignoring people. It means having a life that doesn't revolve around someone else's approval. And when that happens, something subtle shifts. Instead of asking yourself, how do I make her like me? You begin asking a better question. Does she actually fit into the life I'm building? And that one mindset change alone can transform how people perceive you. Because confidence isn't loud. It doesn't need to convince anyone, it simply exists. So in this video, we're going to break down 5 controversial but powerful principles that explain why some men constantly chase, while others are the ones being chased. Some of these ideas might challenge what you've heard before. Some might even make you uncomfortable. But if you truly want to understand attraction on a deeper level, these are conversations worth having. Let's start with the first principle, and it might surprise you. Let's start with something that sounds almost backwards. If you want women to chase you, stop trying so hard to impress them. Now, wait a second. Does that mean you should stop caring about your appearance or how you act? Of course not. But there's a big difference between self-respect and performance. Many men approach conversations like they're on stage. They're constantly thinking, did that sound cool? Was that funny enough? Did I say the right thing? And ironically, that pressure makes interactions feel unnatural. People are very good at sensing when someone is trying too hard to be liked. Psychologists often refer to this as approval-seeking behavior. When someone is constantly adjusting themselves to gain validation, it creates a subtle imbalance in the interaction. Instead of two people connecting naturally, it starts to feel like one person is auditioning for the other. Now think about the opposite scenario. Imagine talking to someone who seems relaxed, comfortable, and not overly concerned with impressing you. They're not rude. They're not arrogant. They're simply being themselves without constantly checking for approval. That kind of energy is rare, and because it's rare, it becomes attractive. Because you're manipulating them, but because genuine confidence naturally draws. Here's the deeper reason. Attraction often grows when someone feels like they're discovering you naturally, not when everything about you is being strategically presented. So instead of trying to prove you're interesting, focus on actually becoming interesting. Invest in your goals, develop skills, have real hobbies, build friendships, work on your confidence. When your life has depth, conversations become effortless. You're no longer trying to impress someone, you're simply sharing who you already are. And something surprising happens. When you stop chasing approval, people start paying closer attention, not curiosity. And that curiosity is often the first step toward attraction. Let me ask you another honest question. Have you ever noticed that the moment a man finally starts focusing on his own life, suddenly he starts getting more attention? It almost feels unfair. When he was trying the hardest to impress women, nothing happened. But when he becomes busy building his goals, friendships, and interests, people start becoming curious about him. Why does that happen? The answer has a lot to do with perceived value and independence. In psychology, people are often more attracted to individuals who appear self-directed and purpose-driven. Someone who has their own path tends to appear more confident and emotionally stable. Think about it from a real-life perspective. If someone's entire schedule revolves around texting you, waiting for your reply, or constantly trying to meet you, what message does that send? It can sometimes communicate that their life lacks other priorities. But when someone clearly has a life they are invested in, studies, work, hobbies, personal development, the dynamic changes. Suddenly their time feels valuable, and people tend to respect what appears valuable. This doesn't mean ignoring someone or acting distant on purpose. It simply means that dating should be part of your life, not the center of it. For example, imagine two different men. The first man rearranges his entire day the moment a woman texts him. He immediately drops everything and becomes fully available. The second man responds when he is free, continues working on his goals, and treats dating as one aspect of his life rather than the main focus. Which one seems more grounded? Usually, it's the second, because someone who is building their own future naturally communicates stability and direction. And interestingly, that creates curiosity. People start wondering, what else is going on in his life? What goals is he working toward? Why does he seem so calm about everything? That curiosity often makes conversations more engaging. Instead of trying to prove your worth through attention, your lifestyle quietly speaks for itself. So the lesson here is simple but powerful. Stop structuring your life around the hope of attracting someone. Instead, build a life that is fulfilling on its own. When you are genuinely excited about your own direction, you become more interesting to talk to, more confident in your decisions, and less dependent on validation. And paradoxically, that independence often makes people want to move closer, not further away. Now, the next principle might be even more surprising because it explains why emotional independence can sometimes be more attractive than constant attention. Let's talk about something many men misunderstand. A lot of guys believe attraction grows the more attention they give. More messages, more compliments, more reassurance. They think if they show enough interest, eventually she will feel the same. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes too much attention too quickly can reduce attraction instead of increasing it. Now, this doesn't mean you should ignore people or play games. Healthy relationships always require communication and respect. But there is something powerful about emotional independence. Emotional independence means your mood, confidence, and sense of self are not completely controlled by how someone else responds to you. Let's look at a common situation. A man sends a message and immediately starts checking his phone every few minutes. If she replies late, he begins overthinking. Did I say something wrong? Is she losing interest? Should I send another message? And before he realizes it, his entire emotional state is depending on someone else's response. People can often sense this kind of pressure, even when it's subtle. It creates a dynamic where one person is seeking reassurance, while the other person feels responsible for providing it. Now compare that to someone who is emotionally grounded. He enjoys the conversation, he appreciates the connection, but his happiness doesn't collapse if a reply takes longer than expected. He continues with his day. He focuses on his work, his hobbies, his friends, and because of that, his energy feels calm and balanced. Psychologists often point out that emotional stability tends to be perceived as a sign of maturity and confidence. When someone appears comfortable with themselves, it removes pressure from the interaction. Instead of feeling like they must constantly validate you, the conversation becomes lighter and more natural. Here's the key idea. Attraction often grows when two people feel free, not when one person feels emotionally responsible for the other. So instead of giving constant attention in hopes of keeping someone interested, focus on developing emotional balance. Build routines that make you happy, have goals that excite you. Create a life where your confidence comes from your own progress, not someone else's approval. When you reach that point, conversations start to feel different. You're no longer chasing attention. You're simply sharing moments with someone while still being fully secure in yourself. And interestingly, that sense of independence is often what makes people lean closer instead of pulling away. Because when someone feels emotionally grounded, their presence becomes calm, stable, and quietly attractive. And that leads us to the next principle, something that keeps curiosity alive longer than most people realize. Let's talk about something that many people don't realize plays a huge role in attraction: curiosity. Think about the last time you watched a really interesting movie or series. What kept you watching? It wasn't just the characters, it was the uncertainty, the feeling that something interesting might happen next. Human psychology works in a similar way in social interactions. When someone feels like they already know everything about you very quickly, the excitement of discovery can disappear. This is where many men unintentionally reduce their own intrigue. They reveal everything about themselves immediately: their daily routine, their feelings, their entire story. And while honesty is important, sharing everything all at once removes the natural process of getting to know someone over time. Now imagine the opposite scenario. You're talking to someone who is open and friendly, but you still feel like there's more to learn about them. They have interests you didn't expect. They occasionally surprise you with new ideas, perspectives, or experiences. That sense of discovery creates curiosity, and curiosity naturally keeps conversations alive. Psychological research often shows that novelty and unpredictability can make interactions feel more exciting. When something is slightly unpredictable in a positive way, the brain becomes more engaged. But here's an important point. Mystery does not mean being secretive or pretending to be someone you're not. It simply means allowing your personality to unfold naturally over time rather than trying to reveal everything immediately. For example, instead of explaining every detail of your life in one conversation, allow stories and experiences to come up gradually. Instead of always being completely predictable in your responses, allow your humor, opinions, and interests to appear naturally. People enjoy the process of learning about someone piece by piece. It feels more real, more organic. And when someone feels like they are slowly discovering new sides of you, their curiosity stays active. So rather than trying to impress someone with everything you have at once, let your personality unfold at its own pace. Let conversations have layers. Let people wonder a little. Because sometimes attraction grows not from what you immediately reveal, but from what people continue discovering about you over time. And the final principle we're about to discuss might be the most important one of all, because it explains how standards quietly change the way people treat you. Now we arrive at the final principle, and it might be the most uncomfortable one for many men to hear. If you want people to value you, you have to value yourself first. That sounds simple, but in real life, it's where many men struggle. Sometimes a man meets someone he finds attractive, and suddenly his standards disappear. He accepts behavior he normally wouldn't. He ignores disrespect. He tolerates being treated like an option. Why? Because he's afraid of losing the opportunity. But here's the paradox. When someone feels like they can treat you any way they want and you'll still stay, your value in that dynamic often decreases. Not because you're a bad person, but because people tend to respect boundaries. Psychologists often explain that boundaries communicate self-respect. They show that you understand your own worth and expect to be treated accordingly. Now let's imagine two different situations. In the first situation, a man constantly adjusts his behavior just to keep someone interested. If plans get canceled, he accepts it every time. If messages are ignored, he still keeps trying. Over time, the imbalance becomes obvious. In the second situation, a man is respectful and kind, but he also has standards. If someone repeatedly disrespects his time or energy, he calmly steps back. Not with anger, not with drama, just quiet self-respect. And something interesting often happens when someone carries themselves like that. People begin to take them more seriously because standards signal that your attention is valuable and not unlimited. This doesn't mean acting superior or judging others harshly. It simply means understanding that attraction should be mutual. You are not trying to convince someone to like you. You are observing whether the connection actually works for both of you. When you adopt that mindset, everything shifts. Instead of chasing approval, you begin evaluating compatibility. Instead of tolerating poor treatment, you calmly walk away from it. And that quiet confidence often changes how people interact with you. Because when someone knows you respect yourself, they are far more likely to respect you too. And now, after all these ideas, let's end this conversation with one final thought that might challenge the way many people think about attraction. Before we end this conversation, I want to leave you with one controversial thought, and I want you to hear it clearly. Sometimes, the reason women don't chase a man isn't because he's not attractive. It's because he hasn't built a life worth chasing yet. Now, I know that might sound harsh, but think about it for a moment. Attraction is rarely about one perfect line, one clever message, or one trick. It's usually about the energy someone brings into a room, their confidence, their direction, their emotional stability, and the standards they live by. When a man is constantly seeking approval, it becomes visible. But when a man is focused on his growth, his purpose, and his values, people notice that too. And interestingly, that's often when curiosity begins. Now, I want to say something to you directly. As a woman speaking to men who are trying to understand this, women don't usually chase perfection. What often catches attention is authenticity, calm confidence, and a man who respects himself enough to build a meaningful life. That's far more powerful than trying to impress someone every second. So, here's what I want you to do. In the comments, tell me honestly, what has your experience been when it comes to attraction and dating? Have you ever noticed these patterns in real life? Share your thoughts and experiences below. I read the comments, and I genuinely enjoy hearing different perspectives. I may even reach out and continue the conversation with some of you, because at the end of the day, understanding people isn't about winning a game. It's about learning